Hello and welcome to episode 115 of PubShorts, which is titled after a Pet Shop Boys song called Opportunities. Let's make lots of money. And somebody who's not very happy with the song reference is going to explain and introduce himself and explain.
Ah,
But my name is
sorry, carry on.
my name is Dr. KK, and I'm the innovation officer at Trinka and Inago. And Tony, explain to me who you are and why you qualify to say that Pet Shop Boys isn't great.
Well, I'm absolutely not qualified to make any value judgments on the Pet Shop Boys. You know, everyone's got a different taste in music, and unfortunately or fortunately, whichever side of the fence you are, the Pet Shop Boys don't necessarily fit into my category of music I like. They don't, millions of people do. So what do I know?
Yeah.
So this particular song, as you rightly say, hello everyone, I'm Tony O'Rourke, VP for Partnerships here at Inago. And welcome to episode 115. As KK rightly says, it's called Opportunities, Let's Make Lots of Money, which is a Pet Shop Boys song from 1986. And the songs, we'd like to give a song a theme, an episode a theme. And this one is about ambition and profit, about AI hype, citation games, and industry springing up around scientific credibility or the lack of scientific credibility.
Right. So we touched on some of these topics in the last episode 114 as well, but we start with a paper mill story again.
It feels so long ago.
Yes, it does. I mean, maybe years ago, Tony. I don't even remember. But anyway, the first story is from Chemistry World, titled AI Tools Combat Paper Mill Fraud in Scientific Publishing as Peer Review Systems Struggle. So we've been talking about these related things. Paper mills create, obviously, as we discussed already, create fake research paper and sell authorship, overwhelming the traditional peer review system. And publishers are using AI and automated tools to detect fraudulent submissions before they even reach the reviewers. And these tools, Tony, do you have any points now? I thought you were... Okay, yeah. So these tools analyze various factors like author history, references, and content to flag suspicious papers. And they also assist editors by summarizing manuscripts and critiquing methods, although generative AI used by reviewers is restricted due to confidentiality as well. So, the sort of bespoke tools made for editors sort of to do this using generative AI. And post-publication detection is also improving, but some experts believe that systemic changes are needed to truly fix issues in scientific publishing. So this is a sort of, I thought was an interesting overview as to how AI, I guess, systems can help publishers, editors, and maybe in the future peer reviewers to combat the paper mill related crisis. Do you have any thoughts on it?
No, apart from we're going to see so many more tools like this coming up over the coming months and years. I mean, it's absolutely critical that tools exist to support the management of research integrity in the research communication process. So no, bring them on.
Yep. And a related chemistry related story is 1 in 5 chemists have deliberately added errors into their papers during peer review. It's as per a study. So this was to help get the errors that were introduced were to help get these papers published, and this was based on a survey of 982 chemistry researchers, and most researchers have found errors in the paper. So they were forced to sort of introduce errors, but they also are aware that many of the chemistry papers have errors in them. So some of the actions related to this include private conversations about I want this to be changed. Maybe it's a citation that they would like changed because for citation, to boost somebody else's citation, or citing the paper in their own work, or mentioning training. So some researchers directly contact authors or journals to sort of report on these errors, while others ignore or just continue to cite the erroneous publication. Now, there's a belief that errors should be corrected, especially in one's own research. Remember, it's an interview survey, so there are varying opinions. And some think errors only need correction if they change the paper's conclusions. And the author of the study suggests that more transparency and openness to critique are needed in terms of such potential errors, and also suggests that the researchers' papers could be treated as living documents that can be updated, which is perfectly. This is exactly how it should be. That if you find an error, it could be an overlook, but it should be pointed out, it should be flagged, it should be fixed, and that should be communicated to the eventual reader by the publisher. So I thought it was a good way to sort of explain what might happen, and with the extra sort of research integrity concern that some researchers are forced to introduce errors. Tony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose the only thing I don't understand, and I still don't understand despite your excellent summary, is the fact that such a high proportion of authors deliberately introduce errors into their papers because they think it's going to help them get published.
Well, this is a publish or perish culture.
I
Yeah.
struggle to understand it. If the likelihood is that error is going to be spotted, and if that error isn't spotted but spotted later on down the line, there's a risk that paper might get retracted because that error changes the meaning of the paper if the actual conclusions aren't corrected as well. Yeah, I'm struggling to understand the logic behind this.
I mean, you could think. I mean, I haven't read the survey in detail, but in the sense that nothing can ever be perfect, right? So there could be.
However, I do agree with. Sorry, I do agree, and we've spoken about this before. We were talking about this when I worked for the Institute of Physics years ago, and that the artifact of publishing, the product that we all see as a PDF still. I mean, regardless of the fact there is better technology out there, more useful, more things you can do with the content than simply look a page in a book.
Right.
We've talked about living PDF since the noughties. What you can do. So anything that can add value to the research, I think, is good. Anything which allows researchers or authors to come in and critique a paper after it's been submitted, I think is positive.
Yeah. So what I was about to say is that nothing can ever be perfect. So when in the I guess striving for perfection can lead to delays and everything. So maybe researchers have taken the sort of shortcut without compromising the quality of the overall research, and hence they are aware of the errors being retained. This is obviously the genuine, not, let's say, research integrity related errors, but when you are asked to cite something that should not have been cited, that's obviously a research integrity concern, and that is something that needs to be taken care of. So as you rightly said, we don't know why, but it's still a practice, and probably it is related to the publish or perish culture, as well as you need citations and stuff like that to rise up in the academic hierarchy.
Yeah, sure. So it's gamification again.
Yeah. And in a very related research, we have an article from the Science Editor, the Council of Science Editors, is a Science Editor blog. It is a feature article titled "The Citation Advantage of AI-Related Publications." So, I mean, when I read it, obviously, it made a lot of sense in the sense that if suppose you have AI research, you have been publishing AI research in the last maybe 5 years or so, obviously you're bound to be cited because it's a big field. But how do these advantages manifest? So the researcher or the author reviewed approximately 44,000 publications from 2023 to 2024 that had AI keywords. The AI papers got more than twice the expected citations in their own particular field. So it's a field, I guess, balanced, normalized citation count. They also got almost double the citation compared to other papers in the same journal. So it's just simply having an AI keyword or AI as a keyword seemed to double their citations. This was true across almost all research areas, even humanities. So some of the postulated reasons are: AI is multidisciplinary and is relevant to many fields. AI methods can be used in many different areas, and AI research moves fast, so new papers get cited quickly. Now, apart from this, obviously, publishers are also paying more attention to AI topics. However, this high attention can lead to also problems, in the sense publishers might want just AI related papers alone. So peer review systems might also be overwhelmed, leading to low quality papers. So we have touched the sort of potential negative as well. And gamification, as we just mentioned, is another potential threat. So the entire thing would make, because of the citation advantages that AI related research, and putting an AI keyword, even if your research may not be related to AI, if you put in an AI keyword, maybe you get more citations, or people might try to game that. So these are some of the concerns, but I thought it was a fascinating article. Do you have any thoughts on these numbers?
No, I mean, I suppose on one hand, I think it's not unusual to expect groundbreaking trends or groundbreaking methodologies when mentioned in a paper to increase citations, because it just reflects the fact that this is something new, it's something exciting. People want to sort of understand the impact they have on their own research areas. It's happened throughout research history. I mean, I'm sure when the atom was first split, there were more papers talking about the splitting of the atom than there were before. So I don't know. I think it's kind of actual. I am concerned about the gamification of it, though. In terms of there has to be some kind of controls over it. And so it kind of reflects the fact that, the current way we measure citations perhaps needs improving.
All right, and now we have a couple of more citation-related, I think, stories. But the next one, I'm sure that you will find it very sort of controversial. So this is from a Substack called Heterodox Academy. It's called Free the Inquiry. So it is titled "When Diverse Citations Replace Diverse Ideas." So very interesting. What's happening is that Nature Reviews Psychology, a journal, is now asking Tony authors to consider demographics of their citations. They want authors to report on citation diversity, or rather, in the sense, they want to increase the citation diversity as well, and ensure that they have tried to cite at least a diverse group of researchers. So now you would argue why, and etc. So the author of this article argues that this is a bad trend. It reduces scholars to statistics and not ideas, and it could harm academic rigor, as you might have also expected. And another ideological hurdle is for it adds another ideological hurdle. And the journal, although seems to claim that it is an optional thing, but it's still a trend that I think one should avoid. And this is obviously a part of a larger movement for DEI in scholarly publishing as well. Now, I'm going to pause here, and I'm going to ask you. So, would you have ever considered the sort of potential DEI aspect of the research that you're going to cite? I mean, would that at all matter to you when you're actually trying to cite the best research to support your statements?
I can honestly say I don't think I've ever considered the DEI aspect of the citations. I mean, I have had sort of stuff published in the past, and I've never thought about, the gender, the race, the sex, the whatever, the DI aspect of who's actually citing that work never struck me at all as being important. But I suppose if we're looking to encourage DEI, then in the submission process, in the editorial process, then arguably that should be reflected in the citation performance as well.
Yeah, but when I thought about it, let's say that let's say Tony, you and I, let's say we are in the same field, and let's just say that we are your colleagues are also researchers in UK, for example, in the same field. But would a journal force you to cite me instead of you, despite your research having more merit in the citation? That's what I'm worried about.
Would a journal force you? Why would a journal force you?
But for the citation diversity, this is what we are.
If they're trying to encourage you to be more citable by different DEI groups, I'm not sure I'd pay any attention to it.
Right. So that's the thing. I mean, look. On one side, I'm a DEI proponent, but proponent, or rather, I would never ask a researcher to if suppose you have, let's say, you have the option of citing two different groups of researchers pretty much for the same thing. You choose the more diverse research group. I mean, maybe I would want to do that, but that's not a guidance or even an optional thing that you might write in a website. But that's an interesting trend. I think we should probably talk about as in this going forward. So anyway, so this is interesting, and you can also, I think this also covers the citation or the diversity within your own sort of research group as well. I mean, there are so many different things to consider. But anyway, I would not want researchers to factor any concern other than the actual merit of the citation while citing the citation.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's my thoughts exactly. Yeah. Regardless of who, where, what, gender, sex, race, whatever the reader is, I want the relevant researchers to read my content and to decide whether it impacts on their own research or not, and cite it if they consider it to be relevant. That's it.
Right. Perfectly said. And in a related citation-related story, we have from a Nature Index, I guess, article titled "Google Scholar-based tool gives extra credit for first and last author." So this is called G Scholar Lens. Okay, this is a new tool. It's a browser extension. It gives a different score. The Scholar H index or SH index based on author position in Google Scholar. It gives more credit to the first and the last authors, assuming that they did most of the work. Now, obviously, there are problems with this. It's another sort of slice of how one could. You can obviously not not give equal credit to every author in a list of authors that could extend up to 1,000. Now we are aware of it, but do the first and the last require, especially considering the gamification, or rather maybe let's say research integrity related issues, at least in the, let's say, global south, where let's say a professor or an HOD might force their name to be included in the author byline.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
Yeah, so that's a concern. And interestingly, there's a conversation. I mean, I posted about this on my LinkedIn, and there's an interesting conversation happening there. But anyway, so your thoughts on this? I mean, would you like such citation metrics or different slices of each index like this? With
what I would like to see is more granularity in terms of the role of the authors. What role did the author play in the creation of this paper? I don't, there is enough of that, and some journals are starting to do that in terms of explaining the roles of different groups. So you look at some of these very large physics collaborations, for example, where you say you might have 400 or 500 people listed in the paper.
Yeah.
What I, as a reader, would like to see, if I'm going to go through those 4 or 5 pages of author lists before I get to the actual paper itself, is exactly what role these 400 or 500 people have in the paper. So, and to determine who the primary author is, or the primary authors are, and who's simply providing sort of supporting evidence. Yeah, so I would encourage granularity. And if there's a way of measuring that granularity and tracking that, then fine.
Right, and
I think the system at the moment is too diverse to be able to do that accurately, I think.
Right, and in the LinkedIn discussion that I mentioned, I mean, the conversation was about whether this is the right way to do it, or whether authorship contribution statements as well as credit taxonomy, etc., they are better sort of answers to the same problem. But I guess
I think they are.
From a statistical point of view, this is an interesting sort of a slice to capture. I'm still with you and the conversation, the summary of the conversation on LinkedIn. Anyway, so moving on to the next, we have, I think, a couple of more stories. One from the Scholarly Kitchen, who we never seem to miss. In any episode, we have at least one story. So this is Ask the Chefs Who Owns Our Knowledge. This is related to Open Access Week, as the poster says. Yeah. So this is basically Ask the Chefs is basically a sort of many chefs are asked to answer the same question. So what is knowledge? So everybody has answered. So it starts with Rick Anderson, somebody who knows a lot about open access and libraries. So if the main question, or the main point that Rick seems to make is what is the definition of ownership in the context of knowledge? And Rick suggests that it's difficult to sort of define it, and that open access, the movement's goal, is to eliminate individual or corporate control, making community control unclear. In the sense, who owns it is something that we need to sort of define, and knowledge cannot be owned. So Letty Conrad notes that the theme focuses on controlled access and not open, and distinguishes between ownership of knowledge, a public asset, and the ownership of content, which is, I think, the main thing that I took away from this. In the sense, knowledge cannot be sort of owned. It is shared, as opposed to content that sort of leads to the knowledge can be owned and put behind paywalls. And then at least one of my favorite chefs, Hasib Irfanullah's point is that he shares an analogy to illustrate the concept of common property, the analogy of Tangwar Haur in Bangladesh. I probably have screwed up the pronunciation of the name, but the common property aspect is what he's talking about, and decommonization and recommonization. These are the things that he's talking about, drawing parallels to the evolution of research outputs and open access. And Phil Jones emphasizes, let me just scroll to that point. Phil Jones emphasizes that knowledge itself cannot be owned, but the processes and outputs can be protected, leading to complexities in how to fairly monetize or use these outputs as well. And finally, Mariam Sayab points out that the underrepresented regions, open does not mean ours, as in belonging to the communities, as infrastructure and power imbalances in the global north create visibility barriers, and true control requires more than content liberation. And finally, Randy Townsend reflects on the dangerous connotations of ownership and control, but finds optimism in the good intentions of research communities, emphasizing the need to reclaim the narrative and to adopt principles like respect, fairness, and equity. So a lot of diverse opinions. If you have taken away something from this article related to open science, what would it be, Tony?
Yeah, in my mind, there's a difference between knowledge that's open and accessible,
Mm-hmm.
and ownership.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the vast majority of researchers want information. They want to own information. What they want to be able to do is access information to help understand the relevance it has to their own research.
Right.
I think it's a lot as I can't remember which one of the chefs commented on this. Probably Phil Jones mentioned this. A lot of research. So research is not cheap. Research has to be funded. There has to be some kind of return, whether it's financial or societal return on that investment. It could be in the way of patents, perhaps intellectual property, copyright, whatever. I don't think I don't understand the logic of thinking that just because it's open, it should be owned by everybody. It should be accessible by everybody, but it doesn't mean to say they necessarily own it.
Right.
I buy food from a supermarket. It doesn't mean to say I own the supermarket. I buy it because I want to use that product. But when I finish using that product, then I go back to buy some more.
Right. Valid point and interesting. I mean, but my takeaway was the fact that the knowledge, sort of lack of ownership of knowledge, because that is collective and shared, can be transmitted, but maybe the content behind the paywall. So interesting story. So the last major story that we have is a big story which broke, I guess, in Journalology last week. I think we will cover more of it, but this is a dedicated post based on this. It is titled "Curious Loses Its Impact Factor." So this was Tony, we covered this in the early episodes of PubShorts itself as to how Helion and Curious have been delisted, I think, from the indices, but now the impact factor has been officially lost, and so it is the other journal that we are mentioning is Helion. Is that right? Am I pronouncing it right? Helion?
I'm not sure it's Helion or Helion.
Helion.
Yeah,
okay, maybe sure. Helion. Yeah.
Maybe one of the two.
Yeah, Helion. Let's stick with Helion. Is also in trouble, and it was put on hold by Web of Science at the same time, and it's awaiting its decision. So the main thrust of the article is that because of these delisting as well as on hold / losing the impact factor has led to a tremendous decrease in the number of articles, the submissions. So this is the concern for it, and many researchers from the let's say global south also generally tend to submit to these. So from our point of view, from the businesses that we do, we are expecting differences because people will want to now go to other journals, even though these are very sort of popular, wanted.
Of course.
Yeah. So these are sort of some of the ripple effects will be felt by all of it. But what do you think? I mean, one of the points that James mentions here is that we do not know how, or what is the data on the basis of which this was done. This was not being made transparent. So the lack of transparency is the main sort of thrust of this article. And I agree with James in the sense that obviously we need to know why, and everybody needs to know why, including the publishers as well as the researchers need to know why these decisions are made on what.
I mirror your concerns completely. The impact factor is it's whether we like it or not, is still kind of the benchmark for deciding whether to submit to a journal or not. That's why so many new journals often struggle in their first couple of years, because they don't have an impact factor to get to volumes of citations, volumes of paper submissions that they need. But to have an impact factor withdrawn is pretty substantial, pretty fundamental. And as you see by the graph we saw earlier, it's had a massive impact on the number of submissions that these journals have received, and understandably so. If there's no impact factor, then how can you justify that to your funder, to your research community? Because it's one way of validating the research that you're doing,
right?
By going into a high impact journal. So I'd love to know a bit more as to why it was delisted. Yeah.
Right. All right. Moving on to the quick hits, Tony. AIP Publishing joins the STM Integrity Hub to advance research integrity efforts. What does the hub do? It provides tools, infrastructure, and insights related to research integrity related automation. It was launched in 2022. It feels like it has been there forever, and it's a cloud-based environment, if at all you are wondering. So any thoughts on AIP joining the STM Integrity Hub?
I don't know why every publisher isn't part of it. I mean, it's an industry-wide initiative. Every publisher, anyone that's involved in the research integrity process, needs to support this.
Right. And in a very sort of curious turn of events, I don't know if you've already looked at this story, Tony. Bill Gates has sort of turned around, and he has said that climate change will not lead to humanity's demise. So he's one of the leading climate change is a thing proponents, and obviously he has turned around, and there's speculation that this might be to sort of get away from all the sanctions that he might encounter if suppose he hadn't said it on his blog. So this is available on his blog. If you're curious, you can check it out in the I mean, he basically said that it won't lead to, as in the current predictions are not as severe as he thought it was, and it can be reversed by sustained efforts, basically from a doomsday scenario to reversing the stance. So this is a potential, I guess, I don't know how to say it, like the personality shift kind of a thing happening potentially because of the pressure that he's receiving from the US government. Any thoughts on this at all?
I hadn't seen this paper until you shared this with me earlier. And I'm sure there are strong underlying factors, reasons why.
Yeah.
He's taken that change of position.
Right, and
whether that's always going to be the case, we'll see.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it is actually based on actual. It's like you can what is it? You have evidence to back such a turn of events, which will be good for everybody, including.
I hope he's got evidence as well.
Yeah, right. And a couple of last stories. So the first one, Image Twin has improved its image manipulation detection, especially for Western blot, and apparently it is twice as good as before, which is very relevant in the sense that with the advent of AI related manipulation of images is likely to be more, and so this has become better. Any thoughts on it? I mean, in the conferences that you've attended this year so far, have there been conversations around the increased image manipulation that is happening in research papers?
Oh, every publisher wants to be able to identify image manipulation in their papers. I think so. Services like Image Twin and Proofig are going to become increasingly popular, as well as supporting services for those like ours, for example, to help the publisher to identify anything that may have been flagged in Image Twin or Proofig.
All right, finally, Tony, I do not want to end on a sour note, but we do have something that we need to talk about. So Elon Musk's version of Wikipedia is live. It's called Grokipedia. If at all you have been living under a rock for the last maybe 2 weeks or so, it's basically a clone of Wikipedia, but written by AI. And no prizes for guessing that it's a little right-leaning and conspiracy, I guess, friendly, that kind of a thing. Tony, did you take a look at it at all?
I hadn't until you pointed out I'd not even seen it, so I must have been living under that rock you mentioned.
Yes, indeed. I mean, maybe you're not. At least you know about Grokipedia, so that's good. But this is the Pet Shop Boys article. The Pet Shop Boys, wrote the song or published the song that we have titled this accordingly. So you can see that it's pretty much related to. It's in a similar manner. You also might think that it looks like an AI generated output, but it could very well be. But whatever it is, Grokipedia is there, and I would strongly recommend that you still stick to Wikipedia if you really want some amount of assurance in what you're reading, if it's factually true or not.
I like the way you said some.
Yes.
I'm a pretty frequent user of Wikipedia, and okay, it's not 100%. And there's been more than one occasion where I've commented, but for quick reference for information, it's a good starting point.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. All I'm saying is from an academic publishing point of view,
academic publishing point of view, if you're using Wikipedia for academic research, then I think you need to think again.
Yeah, that's why I said what I said. So anyway,
let's not think again, but think about other options that support it.
Right. So Tony, we are at the end of episode 115. Opportunities. Let's make lots of money. So if somebody were to ask you, could they make money by listening to PubShorts? What would your answer be?
No, but you can certainly be informed and educated, and hopefully entertained. You can see all previous 114 episodes of PubShorts over on our YouTube playlist. Just search in PubShorts and you'll get the playlist with all episodes there. And we encourage you to like, share the PubShorts with your colleagues, and also to send us suggestions for future topics.
Excellent. And Tony, for the first time in this entire PubShorts' existence, I'm going to disagree with you. And the answer to the question that I posed you is that yes, you can. You will have more opportunities to make money because of all the things that we discussed. You'll be more caught up and aware of what's going on in academic publishing, research integrity, and AI. And obviously, you can make better decisions, which will eventually lead to you to make more money, right, Tony?
I agree with everything you just said.
And with that consensus, having just 30 seconds to turn Tony's opinion, I am saying goodbye, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye, Tony. Bye, everyone.
I look forward to contradicting you next time, KK.
I look forward to that too. Bye-bye.
All right. See you next.